We all come to pray, going back for warriors, keeping the whispers away. In suits and in skirts, we're the rebels you say, talking about life and dreaming of a different day. On the back row we stay, in the back we don't sway, just let the sermon flow. We're on the back row.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, and as sort of was promised, I don't know. All right, we're going to talk about Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, the Hulu show, and I'm going to call it out. I think I falsely promised we were going to do an episode about each of the episodes, because this is a reaction episode to the first episode, and I don't know if I can watch all 8 episodes of the show. I'm joined by the news wizard Verlin. How are you, sir?
Well, fantastic, except that I got a little less sleep last night than usually do, and I think I lost a few brain cells along the way.
Now, the show's not made for us. If people are like,
No.
what have you been talking about? Secret Lives of Mormon Wives on Hulu, 8 episodes. It follows these creators of Mom Talk, which was a group of women, originally 4, who decided, hey, you know what? We want to be the providers for our family. We're going to dance, and we're going to have contract deals with different things and be able to provide for that.
It became a group of 20 plus, right? In the end?
At its peak.
Yeah.
20 plus moms that would come together to create this viral, air quotes, content and be able to do it. And now, this series is them getting back together after, for people who don't know, we've talked about it here in the Cultural Hall. What happened is one, and maybe even self-proclaimed leader saying the one that she's got them all together, Taylor Frankie Paul, she said, hey, you know what? There's lots of soft swinging going on between all of us ladies, to which most of the internet went, wait, soft swinging? What is that? It's everything but the deed itself, is how I interpret it. Can be anything up to up to intercourse. What a terrible word that is, by the way.
It's the name of a city in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. For such a beautiful thing, it has such a terrible name, right? And bringing people to into this and saying, hey, you know what, we're just a bunch of swingers, and then it sort of blew up, and then everyone kind of went and recessed back to one traveled to Hawaii, and the Mom Talk sort of went silent, and then the series sort of picks it up as people are coming back together.
So to give it a little bit of a time perspective, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think this was all going on in kind of 2022, and it kind of blew apart in 2022. And it seems to me like a creative producer came up with this brilliant idea of, let's create a reunion and pull these people back together.
Well, and maybe not just producer. I could see the idea of, if these women, as it is purported, that they had this sort of business collaboration, and it blew up when this thing came, and they were like, no, there's still money to be mined from this group of people. Let's get the gang back together and have this.
Maybe so, but I'll admit now, because of having watched this morning, I had some drive time to and from a meeting. And so I listened to a couple of other interviews of some of the characters that they've done over the last couple of years. And in one of the interviews, Taylor herself seemed to suggest it was someone from the outside coming to her and saying, hey, we think it would be cool to pull all these people back together again.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it does make for drama, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, we're not the ideal audience for this necessarily.
Not at all. Not at all.
You're how old are you? I don't even remember. It feels like you're 30. How old are you?
I just turned the big 60 earlier this year.
Yeah, you're a 60-year-old gentleman. I'm 44. Both of us.
I think I'm 39, but 60 is what it says on the birth certificate.
So not for us necessarily. I think maybe I would like to say things that we enjoyed about it. Because I do think that there are a couple of interesting, like enjoyable parts of it, maybe. And then we take a break, and then we come back and we talk about the things that maybe either were disagreeable or things that it was just like, yeah, I'm not so sure. So
Yeah.
lead me with a kindness. What was something that you enjoyed about this?
Well, something that I enjoyed and that kind of surprised me a little bit, it seemed like as they were cutting between any of these scenes, and of course it's fast scenes and fast cuts to and from, as is modern television, they used a ton of what I think is church B-roll material,
Mhm.
right? Used a ton of shots of temples and mountains and kind of classic Intermountain West, almost like you'd see between sessions of General Conference kind of video,
Hmm.
to kind of set the stage, right?
Yeah, well, so I'm going to take issue with that because that was one of the things that bothered me about it.
Yeah.
I liked being able to see the temple and that kind of stuff, but it seems like in an effort to be like, hey, general population, this is what we understand church to be, when they would go to these different like B-roll things, it's like maybe there is a church in downtown Salt Lake that has a stained glass of the Apostle Paul, but I'm pretty sure that that is Catholic or other, Protestant visionary that you are
Mhm.
trying to bring in the idea of church to.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing they did was they used non-Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints themes, like they would show pictures of a cross or a
Yes,
symbol with a cross on it, right? Which
yes.
we know doesn't have anything to do with the church. But I think the other thing that was interesting is they'd be talking about something maybe pretty salacious, and they'd cut to the next scene, and you'd get a pan of the Provo Temple, or you'd get a pan of the America of the Mount Timpanogos temple, or
Mhm.
whatever temple it was. And they were pretty non-specific in terms of the temples they were choosing along the way.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, maybe we won't be able to do the things that we like and things that we don't like, but be
No,
able
you
to talk about
what's
that.
a thing you liked?
What one of the things that I liked is that it was so Mormon. I just I didn't love that, but I did love it, right? Like
It was authentic in a lot of ways, right?
yeah, one of
Yeah.
one of the one of the girls who I think, and props to the editors and folks who did this, you can tell the majority of them are no longer like adhering to the principles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Meaning,
I think there may be developments in the show. That's only one of the reasons I would watch it, is because I think they set it up to look that way.
sure.
I think more than half are probably still practicing.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. But one of the characters said towards the end of the first episode, "What the fuh?" And I loved I that was so. Now, granted, there is a lot of language in the show, so if you're listening to
There
this,
is.
you are a
Yes.
tender-hearted person.
If you're sensitive to swearing, it's not the show for you. But
Yeah,
on that point, it seemed to me that the directors told them, why don't you amp up a little bit the swearing?
yeah, maybe.
Because they throw in some F's and S's in places where I'm like, oh, okay, I wouldn't have necessarily expected it there, but it was almost like they threw it in to get an effect.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. Um, the other thing that I sort of liked about that is I like when shows are set where I'm from, and you probably get this because a lot of stuff is filmed
A
in and
lot of
around
filming
where
in
you
North
are,
Carolina. Yeah.
that I go, where is that? And I don't know that that's necessarily the show at all, but I'm like, now let me see. Are they eating at,
Exactly.
where is that? What coffee shop is that? Have
Well,
I
that's
been
one
to
of the
that
things I
tea place?
liked, right? I saw this coffee shop. I'm like, brunch hard. I love that idea of brunch hard. So I had to Google and look it up. It's a place called Sunday Best in Sandy, Utah.
Hmm.
And maybe next time I'm out there in Utah, we grab our breakfast there.
Well, I think we'd have to brunch hard there, Verlin. I don't
Yeah,
think we
yeah,
can have
yeah. We can do
breakfast.
that. And as long as we film it, then we're good.
Yeah, and then we write it off on our taxes, and then I the other thing that I sort of enjoyed about it, and I also have very meh feelings about it. I enjoyed that it wasn't just the girls. They bring in the mom of
Mhm.
one of
Mhm.
the girls, whom So this is kind of a fun thing. When I was married previously, that mom was in my ward. And
Ah,
so I know her and knew that Taylor was her daughter, and actually at a wedding or two, a decade and a half ago, met a very young Taylor Frankie Paul,
okay.
and can sort of just remember that being like, oh, this is all of our kids, right? Not like, oh, that's future TikTok star Taylor Frankie Paul. But I thought that that was interesting to have that sort of aspect about it, because it is very much like, we are the people in this group and we're talking about this group and we're having our reaction. And I feel like there is that need for, all right, you guys know that like this is all just like your group, and that everyone else witnessing this feels entirely different outside of this group, right? You guys know that, right?
Well, this is interesting. I liked the scenes with her mother for a couple of reasons. One, I actually appreciated, maybe it just shows that I'm old and I've got kids the same age as Taylor. But her mother's reactions seem genuine,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And her mother actually at some point stands up and walks away and says, I just can't talk to you about this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And those of us that are parents, I think we've probably all had those moments,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think on the other side of that, since we're sort of blurring the lines of how we were going to split this up, which is perfectly fine because I think that's how we do it, right? I didn't like, because it seems like Leanne, that's Taylor Frankie Paul's mom's name. I didn't like the way that where she sort of is speaking, and she wouldn't tell you that she's doing this, and but the way that the show is sort of building it, she sort of speaks in and in behalf of the church almost, right? Like, so she sort of
A little bit,
embodies,
yeah.
she embodies that part of it. And
Yeah, I guess they frame her as part of the establishment, right?
right. And speaking into it, and she's just like, I just can't. You're not a stupid person, but you're doing stupid things. Like it just felt it felt needed to have that voice to be able to be into it. But I also felt like I wondered how much of that, though genuine, and how many of us might feel about some of those actions, like how much of that was amped up because I don't know. I don't think that like every Mormon mom that has a daughter that is, behaving as such is just like, I just can't with you. Like, I think some walk along and go, okay, like maybe we could make some different
Oh
choices
yeah.
here instead of what you're doing.
Yeah, there's some scripting, no doubt.
Yeah. I
There,
uh I do wonder, within all of this, and I think that this is how they get you, is to your point, like, because I'm a member of the club, member of the church, it is a curiosity for me to be like, are we doing this? Do we belong to the same like group and organization? Because they're talking, there's a scene where a couple of them, they move into the new house and they drink, and I'm like, we don't drink. I mean, we don't drink.
yeah.
We drink.
Well,
Are we drinking now? Did I miss a word of wisdom change?
again, this is a reality show, so it's scripted in some cases.
Sure,
What I appreciated in that scene was that yes, they do drink, and it's champagne because it's a new house, and the champagne is left by the real estate agent. And I wondered, did the real estate agent not realize that they're members of the church?
sure.
Um, but it appears that they drink champagne for the first time because their reaction to it is quite stark. And they both make terrible faces and say, people actually drink this stuff? This is terrible.
Hmm.
Right. And so authentically, it appears that it's not something that they were used to drinking.
There,
Um,
and there's all sorts of like sub things within this that I think is our culture as well.
hmm,
I think Whitney and her husband, that sort of go away to Hawaii and they come
yeah.
back. You, as an onlooker, not knowing much about this, you think that it's just because of the soft swinging. You come to find out that he had been on Tinder and was, meeting people, or not meeting people, but chatting with people online and exchanging pictures. And then there's also this idea of this, porn addiction and sort of the reaction that I feel like is authentic for members of our church, women, when they hear that about someone's husband, to go, oh, and everything along
Yeah.
those lines.
And they do tease that there's more to come out on that storyline, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's part of what they're hooking you into. I did appreciate that too, that some of their reactions were somewhat genuine. I don't know about your generation. In my generation, for instance, if a young lady was pregnant before getting married, and they were in high school, in my generation, often the parents would send them away to go somewhere else with a relative that lived, hundreds of miles away, have the baby, go through that whole process, and then magically appear back at home,
Mm.
9 months later. And it seemed to be like the Hawaii was a similar kind of escape. We have all this trauma blow up. We're going to escape to Hawaii where we don't have to pay attention to any of this, kind of let things settle and hope that we come back and it's in a better place.
One of the things that drives me crazy about this, and there are several.
We get hours with the crazy things here.
Actually, let's take a break. Let's take a break. When we come back, and I'll lead into, the thing that drives me crazy about this. We'll come back and do that in the second half of this recap episode that might be the only one that we do of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, the series on
Don't be making promises you don't intend to keep.
I should have never. We'll be back in just a sec. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit LennonDesign.com.
Here in the second half, talking about the secret lives of Mormon wives. If you are new to the Culture Hall, you're finding us for the first time. We do lots of stuff not like this. We do news episodes where we talk about the latest and sometimes not so greatest around the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We talk about all of it, the positive, the negative, talk about how that might affect us as members of the church. And then we also talk to members and non-members of the church about various things. Recently spoke to an Olympian about her experience being a college athlete at BYU, being a part of the LGBTQ community, and winning a bronze medal at the Paris 24 Olympic Games. Of just one of the most recent interviews, and then another one, a female chaplain endorsed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and her experience being able to lead a congregation, but not always, because she's a female. So that's another episode that we've got. The thing that drives
message there, people, do not judge the Cultural Hall by this episode.
Yeah. Thank you. The thing that drives me crazy about it, the thing that it just kept running through my head. The idea that you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with. You've probably heard that quote from like the corporate community, and that's very much like, if you want to level up all these things, you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most of your time with. Like,
very self-helpy. Yeah.
I just kept going, oh my gosh, if this is the sum of, if they're the sum, they and I know that it's played up a little bit. But this is some of the worst of humankind on
So
display.
this is something I was thinking about too, and I actually went and asked a couple of people. I won't identify who I asked to protect their innocence here, but I asked them, "Is this really different? Is this really amped up?" And the answer was yes, it's amped up because it's being dramatized.
Mhm.
But I was told that this kind of interaction, particularly when you get groups of women this age together, is actually quite typical,
Yeah.
and not just for members of our church, but for anyone, whether it's, mixed faith groups or people with no faith at all. The tendency when these kinds of groups get together to get they almost act like they're on camera all the time while they're having, a group get together. They're all made up. They're very catty. They're flipping their hair. They're talking about each other before the other one shows up. Things that kind of just made me on edge as they're talking about Taylor before she comes to this breakfast meeting. They're making fun of what they think she's going to say and what she's going to do.
Mhm.
Now, never mind the fact that she says and does exactly what they predict she's going to do.
Right. It to me just reaffirms why I hate people and don't have friends.
Well, and I started to think about this, and again, this may be me thinking, it's certainly not scientific, but if women interact this way all the time, this explains to me why there are less and less cases of men and women meeting together more and more,
Mm.
and men are kind of withdrawing or not interacting with these kind of groups because there are some women who interact more and more this way.
Yeah. It also makes me sad because on some level I think it's an exploitation of someone who's not mentally well.
I think that may be true. And I think some of them recognize that. In an interview I listened to with Taylor, she talks about her mental health journey and the things she's doing to become healthier from a mental health point of view. One of the things I did like about it is she was very open. I think what they're portraying is they're portraying Taylor the way Taylor is. Talked about the fact in high school that she was a partier in high school, and it's obvious that that continues today.
Sure.
Right. She's not being someone different on TV than she is in her real life. I don't know about all of the other people involved. I would say characters, but they're real people, not characters. So I'm not sure. It was curious to find out that at least one of them is a return missionary,
Mhm.
and she is in the middle of a lot of the drama involved.
Yeah, I think that I'll probably watch it just because that's the kind of person that I am. Like I just want to know. Like so if people are talking about it, I can go, "Oh yeah, no, I watched that and I have feelings about what you're talking about." And that certainly, is evidenced by us quickly doing this episode, by every, newspaper and news outlet in the state of Utah currently, and lots nationally talking about this particular thing. It's certainly something that people are talking about. I think that I'll watch it for that case. But it is and this probably speaks volumes about me as a person. Like I watch it and I have a desire to in some like dark recesses of my heart to be something like an influencer, if that makes sense. Like I would love, I think that it would be fun. I think that I could succeed well in a space of kind of entertaining the masses in something like that. I think that that could be very fun. But I watch things like this and other programs and I go, I don't even want to risk the chance that I could be anything near like any of these people ever. And so I don't do it, right? And probably that's just me being like, oh, you could if you wanted to, but you're choosing not to, right? Like,
well, I don't know you all that well. I've only been listening to you for years and interacting a little more recently, but I think you would have the capability to do it in a positive way. I think with your personality and your life's experience, you could be a TikTok influencer very easily on topics that matter to you.
Yeah.
And not have to take it down a negative path. Now, it wouldn't be like some of the TikToks I see with people doing fishing demonstrations or, using a magnet to find things in lakes and rivers, but something that's a little more entertaining and a little more uplifting.
I would still insist on dancing, doing dance videos.
Oh, dance, sing, and voices and accents. I fully would expect those.
Sure, sure. I would start a group of gentlemen who are just catty towards one another, and we'd call it dad talk. That would be our thing. I don't know.
Oh, I like that idea. I like that idea. Back to a positive. One of the things
Oh,
that,
you're bringing it back. Let's do it. I'll take a
yeah,
positive.
one of the things that one of the people mentioned is she did mention that this became a support system for her. She felt like she was trapped in kind of her own life, and this mom talk group gave her an opportunity to interact with others and be healthy and kind of pull herself out of some of the mental health issues she was having. She referred to it as a support system,
Yeah.
which I think at some level probably was true for a number of the women involved.
The thing with that, though, they also mentioned that they're like, we are women, we're the expectation of the church. We're gonna have babies super young, and we're fighting against the patriarchy. And I hear that a bunch. And to some level, there's some things that I agree with, right? But I think where the miss is, at least for a lot of these women, is I don't think that regular, I'm using that in a broad brush stroke, regular LDS women see themselves in these women at all. And so they're not like, yeah, we are, sister. Yeah, we're fighting the good fight. It's like, I'm not sure what you're doing, but I'm not soft swinging, drinking alcohol and, doing these kind of things. I may agree with some of your principles, but we are not we right now.
Yeah, I don't live in Utah Valley. I don't live in Utah. I spend time visiting there, but it seemed like they leaned into the worst side of the stereotypes at times. They said, well, you're expected to be, married by the time you're 20 and have kids by the time you're 21 and all of these kinds of things. And personally in my family and the people I interact with, I haven't felt that expectation of be married by you're 20 and have kids by the time you're 21.
Yeah, or certainly not for years.
Yeah. One was 23 years old and she'd been married for 6 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the exception and not the rule. Since pioneer times have been over, at least.
The other thing that I think sort of interesting, and maybe we close it out on this, the church very heavy-handedly reacted before the show came out.
They did.
Hey, you know what? There's these things, and oftentimes it's horrible that they're damaging to faith. I am hyperbolically paraphrasing what it is, right? But it's essentially like, well, they use this in Hollywood and whatever. I wish that, and maybe they feel like they have to, and maybe they do have to, right? I'm not up on the wall looking on the other side, to use a prophetic parable. I think if they just would have not said anything, I think that people would not have paid nearly as much attention to this program. And I think that people that know any member of the church would have been like, no, what? No, I know they don't drink. We tried to get Jim to drink at the company party. Jim won't drink. Jim never drinks.
Yeah, I think you're freaking right there. Absolutely. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think, there's two sides of PR and marketing, right? One side says any exposure is good exposure, amp it up. If you feel threatened, get out there positively, get out there in advance and kind of tell people the truth. The other side is, ignore it. And apathy is the very best thing you can give when you don't like something. And I think the church chose one versus the other, where in the past they may have leaned a different direction.
Sure.
And they may just reflect the leadership of the church's PR group.
And I just don't think it matters. At the end of the day, as far as that goes, because even I do think that more eyes, certainly there will be more discussion early. It was released today. There will be discussion for a long while. But to me, I like the phrase a nothing burger. Where that's what I feel like this sort of is as far as its relation to the church. There are some things within the church that are within this, but it is just a series, just like the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Like there are some, he said with a question mark in his voice, aspects of Mormonism that find their way into it. And those are interesting, the looking at something and going, well, what's the point that we can get to without it being like against the rules there? That sort of permeates some
Yeah.
of their behavior, and
We
that
talked
certainly.
about loopholes a little bit, pressing the kind of the edges, right?
Mhm. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't think that anyone's going to be like, that's it. Mormons are soft swinging, half dressed women who are catty to each other. I just don't think that that's the thing that people are taking away from it.
Well, I think a couple of things hopefully that come away from it. Number one, a reaction I got from someone else who watched was this is just like all of the other Real Housewives of.
Mm-hmm.
It's following the same formula. It's the same way. So people hopefully will react the same way. It's scripted, drama, intentional. The other side of it, the marketer in me, the PT Barnum fan in me says any publicity is good publicity
Sure.
to the extent that it not forces, but it enables people to start thinking about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and maybe opens them up to be a little more curious. I'd be interested to see, does this mean more people answer their doors or more people let elders and sisters in over the next 6 months? I think that would be a really interesting scientific study to see if this has an impact.
Yeah, and I'm also there may be some redemption or some level of redemption for some of these characters, because really it is. First episode, it's like, hey, watch Horrible for 47
Throw it
minutes.
all up
You're
in
like,
the air and
oh my
let's see
gosh.
where it lands over the next 7 episodes.
Yeah. Because someone coming around, or like there's one of the girls that I'm just like, get out. You seem so innocent.
Just leave.
Can't you see? You are not like the rest of these. I forget her name right now, but it's just like, no, before it's too late. You see.
So I had that impression too, but I think they're setting us up. I think
sure.
that person we're feeling is so innocent. It may turn out that she maybe is in the middle of a lot of the drama.
Well.
Yeah.
7 episodes left to watch. I'm not sure that we're doing this again, Verlin.
I think we should recruit some others in if we do.
Okay. All right. I can do that. In fact, in episode 8, there is a fairly prominent DJ that is featured within that. A good friend of mine and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I will likely use him as a way to talk about that particular episode. What it was like filming and doing some of that. But okay.
I think I'm like you, because I've watched it, because I've leaned in a little bit. I may have to force myself to watch the rest just to see where it goes.
And
it's a cultural experience, right?
Yes,
I can excuse it that way.
Well, but I don't think, and where I was going to go with that is, I don't think that it's bad. Does this make sense? So let me walk down this a little bit.
Is it good, better, or best?
Well. So here is how this is a framing of my life that I get super frustrated with people about. And very few people agree with me. So I just am constantly in a state of frustration. I think that it is in and around the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You can't deny that
absolutely,
that even if it's just that they appropriate the name and they're using it for, heightening it up or whatever, I think that it's important that you know about it. And people are like, oh, so you should know about anti-material. And it's like, kinda. I kind of feel like you should, because not that I'm a studier of it and I'm like, oh, do you have any of these things? And has that been harder in that it's brought up some questions where it's like, well, oh yeah, oh wait, I don't know how I feel about that, because it's something I found.
Yeah.
But I think that is the far greater way to interact with a faith and a faith tradition, rather than there are 7 books that I'm allowed to read from, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not sure about that, because I don't want to say that it's inoculation, like you need to give yourselves just a little bit of the bad to fight for it. That's not what
I was going to go right there, actually, right? I'm going to get my flu shot. I'm not going to go into a room full of people that have the flu. Right. But I'm going to get my flu shot and expose myself a little bit, so at least my body's aware of what could happen to it and prepare myself. So yeah, I think there's some rationale to be aware of what's out there, what people are saying. By the way, there is some very accurate portrayal of Mormon culture in this, right? The way that they talk about perfection in their bodies and their behavior, you've talked about lots of times. And that's something we can all be more aware of and attuned to, and change our approach to because of it. So there's
Yeah.
some redeeming value, but not to just joke about good, better, best. I'd probably put it on the good to less than good side.
Sure.
But I can watch it while I'm doing something else.
Yeah, but I think it's valuable to know people's stories. Another
Yeah.
just kind of an aside. I read the book. I audibled the book. Bad Mormon, the one the Heather Gay of
Sure.
Real Housewives, right?
Yeah.
There is a tremendous amount of value in her book.
Yeah.
And I don't think that she likes the church very much, but I listened to it and I went, huh. And you sort of get to hear an experience and with that particular scenario, like you find where, or you start to kind of hear like where things were for her that she finally started to leave the church. And you go, oh, that's an interesting thing that was a thing. It's why I ask people who
Yeah.
leave the church. Very real. What was it about the church that, made you decide to leave? Tell me. Oh, I couldn't possibly. I don't want to tell you because I don't want to be responsible for that to you. Okay. I
No,
think you can tell me. I think we're all right. Just,
please share.
yeah,
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the other book, written by a woman who was raised in a very Orthodox fundamental family,
educated.
educated,
Yep.
right? What a wonderful book. And the way I looked at it was, am I supporting or exhibiting any of the bad behaviors that occurred within her family life? I think some of us do that without thinking about it occasionally. We just need to be more attuned to it, to focus back on how the Savior would work rather than how the Sadducees would work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example because I can remember reading audibly educated, and hearing things where I'm like, oh, I'm not this extreme on this, but I have said very much a similar sort of sentimented phrase before, when I was with my ex-wife and my kid or just in my life. And it's like, oh yeah, no, this,
Yeah. Yeah. It's an ability to learn and improve ourselves too.
yeah. Well,
So.
don't read it. There are 7 books, Verlin, 7 that you can read from and 2
I won't-
shows.
Different conversation on my mission. I read way more than the 7 books, but with mission president approval.
How dare you? How dare you? All right, that'll do it. I think that's good. It's The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives on Hulu. Find it and watch
And if
it.
you watch it, find another documentary to watch to rebuild the brain cells afterwards.
Contact at theculturalhall.com. Would love your feedback. Want to know what you guys are thinking about that, what you thought of this episode, and should we do more? I think I could probably stomach a couple more. 8 might be
Let us know. Yes, let us know.
Yep. And don't forget, you can become a Patreon saint to the Cultural Hall. You can go to patreon.com/the Cultural Hall. As little as $5 a month. It gets you the access to the videos of these things. Find us on YouTube at the Cultural Hall and on all social medias. Berlin, I hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
And if you weren't feeling well enough to listen this week, you're feeling well enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Rick McGee, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of
the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.